What is the number one thing that most agents overlook when they are helping you sell your house? It's emotions. I guide my sellers through the emotional process of selling the home they may have lived in for several years, and it might even be a family property with so much history and a lot of emotional baggage that has to be unpacked. That is where I excel. These are my top 10 things that must be considered when selling your house and the emotions that may be attached to it. Number one, there are unexpected emotions that will arise when selling your house. Most agents and clients don't think about the emotional side when they are preparing to list their house for sale. But it's not just a logistics issue, it becomes very deeply personal. There's a big difference between preparing to sell your house for sale and preparing you to sell your house for sale. Memories that are tied to a home can make the challenge even more uncomfortable or unsettling when you are thinking about selling your house for sale. If your children grew up in the house and you have memories of the room, or a loved one passed away while you lived in the property, these are things that need to be considered, and I help navigate and walk you through each step of the process. I always encourage my clients that their feelings are valid, and I help them walk through every step of the nostalgia and emotional piece they might be experiencing when they're selling their house for sale. The second thing that must be considered regarding emotional attachment before you list your house for sale is allowing your agent to detach and focus on the goals. I excel in this, and I make it a product of shifting perspective, that instead of emotionally selling your house for sale, you now are a product of the market. And it's easier to detach when the house just becomes an item instead of something that you thought you might keep forever. I also help my clients focus on the future instead of what they're leaving behind. I find it's very helpful to talk about future plans and to even consider making a vision board for what the next few chapters of your life is going to look like and where you're going to live in the coming months once you are able to sell your house. Ask yourself, what do you envision in the future, and what goals do you have? It's a lot easier to put perspective to the current situation if you can give yourself an end goal that you can actually visualize, and keeping that end goal in mind will be helpful when you're running through the emotional and stressful transition of selling your house. The third thing that you should consider before selling your house for sale is if you are selling a property and also buying a property, that is dually challenging. I specialize in helping sellers navigate that process so that we're shifting mindset from only focusing on either the sale or the purchase, and we only control the factors that we can control. I have a specific strategy that I help all of my sellers work with to itemize and rate the level of importance for each of those items. In addition, I help you stay in control of the process. There are a lot of options and contingencies that can be written on either side of the sale or the purchase transaction to ensure that you are not homeless, because we can't always control what other people do and what happens to other parties. We can control what we can control. Lastly, I have strategies to implement to help you and prevent you from feeling rushed to make a decision when you are under an enormous amount of stress and pressure. We itemize the things that are most important, we rate those from the top to the bottom, and then we put them into action to make a plan for how we should proceed to sell your property and buy another property. The fourth thing and emotion you should consider before selling your house for sale in Sidney, Montana, is how to navigate the emotions of your family and your children and any others that might be living with you. I specialize in prioritizing what the most important thing for you and your family is when you are selling your house. That way we can make sure to give the correct attention to the correct parties and get the children or the family or the loved ones excited about the next venture in your life. Additionally, it's fair to say that spouses are not always equally aligned with what the future plans look like or how necessarily to navigate those. I have open and honest communication with all of my clients, and we sit down at the same table so that we get everybody onto the same page and talk through the emotional side that may be using one person to think differently than another does, but to make sure that we are aligned when we actually sign the contracts. Also, fear of the unknown can be a big factor that causes stress and emotional imbalance inside of the home. I help my clients figure out and research the schools and what that looks like and where and the who's and the navigational pieces of logistically getting children to and from, or how to get to work, or what that might look like for your specific situation. The fifth thing that must be considered before selling your house in Sidney, Montana, and the emotional piece is, what if offers don't come in as fast as we expect them to? Of course, we hope for the best, but the key is we plan for the worst. So not only do we have a priority plan, we have a middle plan and a contingency plan in place so that if we don't get offers as quickly as we expect to, that you are not delaying your life plans any more than is absolutely necessary. In addition, this is why it's very important to price your property as appropriately towards the market as possible and consider all competing factors, because your property is in competition with other properties that are priced similarly, and it's going to come down to what's the condition of your property versus the neighboring property. The worst thing that you can do is overprice your home and have to make continual price adjustments, because all that does is it delays your future plans, and it probably ends up getting you less cash in your pocket at the closing table when all is said and done. While you're waiting for those offers, it can become an emotional roller coaster. I hold your hand through every step of the process to reassure you that we are sticking to the plan and why we are sticking to the plan, so that you don't make emotional decisions that otherwise might end up with less cash in your pocket at closing. The sixth emotional piece that you should consider before listing your home for sale in Sidney, Montana is, what does the closing look like? What can you expect emotionally at closing, and how can an agent help prepare you for that? This moment is often more emotional than a seller anticipates. So if we keep clear, realistic goals of what we need to accomplish during that time, it helps keep you focused on what the priorities are. Some clients feel excited when they sell a house, others feel nostalgic. The goal is to keep forward thinking so that you are excited about where you're going into the future, and we focus on that instead of what we're leaving behind. In addition, once the decision's been made to accept an offer and you are at the closing table, I help remind my clients that there is a reason why they made this decision in the first place, and it's important to reflect on the memories and the keepsakes that this location and this home brought to your family, but to look forward to the next chapter. The seventh way that I help my clients manage their emotions during the process of selling their home is just to break down what must be done into bite-sized pieces and prioritizing what must be done first within that, so that you don't think about everything all at once. It literally just becomes an A to Z checklist, and those are broken down into smaller segments. Another way I help my clients to break down the decision-making process is I make sure that they stay informed every step of the way. I over-explain every possible scenario that could come up, because no situation is ever the same, and certainly not when you are selling a house and buying a house. There are an nth amount of degrees a property transaction could go left, right, up, and down. So it's important to talk about all of those ways so that you have all the tools that you need to make the best decision possible, and we prepare for the unexpected well in advance of it happening. There's enormous value in knowing the parameters from the beginning to the end, so that it's helpful and gives you clarity to make the best decision you possibly can. I ensure my clients have the tool belt available to make the best decision from beginning to end. This process of staging and removing personal items can be a very key first step in beginning to remove the emotional attachment to your property. You begin to see the property no longer as your home, but an asset that has served you well and is time to move on from. This can be a very key, important piece when you're transitioning from your old home to your new home. The ninth emotion that I help sellers navigate before selling their house for sale in Sidney is avoiding regret. Regret's very natural. It happens and can occur in any sort of circumstance, but with such a heavy burden of moving from your largest asset in your life for many families, oftentimes you wonder if you're making the right decision. I assist my clients in reassuring them every step of the way that we considered yes, no, maybe, so that by the time they get to the end finish goal, they feel confident that they've been equipped with every tool to help them make the right decision, and they know with confidence they can focus on their future. Also, it's important to focus on the long-term goals and not the short-term goals. And also to remind yourself why you called me in the first place, why we started the process, and why you decided that you needed more space, or you needed to live in a different location, or how moving your family was going to provide for a better lifestyle in the future. In closing, the 10th most important thing I do when preparing my clients to sell their home for sale in Sidney, Montana, is I ensure a very smooth and calm transaction. Not only do I sell houses, I work with people, and it's my job, and I take very seriously, to manage the emotions of the clients that I'm working with, who I've learned to become my family and my friends. These are people that are trusting me over and over, sometimes with their biggest asset, and I do not take that lightly. It is my job to step in and make the process as easy as possible, as often as possible. An additional piece that helps ensure a smooth and calm transaction is communication. I pride myself with over communicating to my clients so they know what's happening every step of the transaction. I don't want anybody to be left in the dark, and I want them to have every tool available at their access every step of the way. The very best reward for me at the end, when we're at the closing table, is when everybody is all smiles and they're very thankful for the process that I was able to help navigate and to make it easy for them. So by the time they're done, they're tired but relaxed and confident that they made the best decision they could, and they chose the best agent to help them manage their emotions on an emotional level. When you're ready to sell your home for sale in Sidney, Montana, I'm here to make sure that it feels less like a transaction and more like a transition.